on this fine Wednesday. As you can see, I have a special guest here.
Me.
My husband. Yes. So today, first off, I know it's been a minute since I've put out a video, we put out a video or anything, but obviously there was like this huge thing that happened in October, which was crazy. And so we had our wedding and whatnot. I was trying to record as much as possible for that and kind of edit it as we were going along. But that's taken up a chunk of like what I was recording, and then obviously we had the honeymoon and then trying to get acclimated and everything since being back. So this is the first video that we've recorded since then. And I thought it would be an interesting video to do just because there's been so many people, one, who ask how we got together, and about our relationship and whatnot, but we also feel like there's just so many couples, and so many relationships that necessarily they have struggles that like shouldn't have struggles, or struggles that aren't really needed, but we just thought it would be nice to kind of show how we went through a relationship and help show others and guide others, just to show that it is possible to have a Christian relationship and meet those requirements, really, I don't want to say standards, but requirements, of not having premarital sex, not living together before being married. What's the other one that we had mentioned? Those two. I feel like we had a third one. Or was it mainly just those two? I think it's just those two. Okay. So those two things, but for a lot of people, they just really struggle with those. But it is possible not to, because we did it. And here we are. So, without further ado, we can jump right in. We mainly kind of only want to tackle, like, 3-ish, 4 things. I feel like there's 4 that we want to talk about, but I feel like they can kind of intertwine. But yes, we don't want to keep you too long, so obviously within these things, if you have any more questions and whatnot, feel free to message me. Most of you have my number or Instagram if you don't want your comment on YouTube. But yes, if you want any further questions and whatnot, feel free to message. But alright, let us begin. Number 1.
Yes. Are we doing like we did?
Yes.
Okay. So first one is how we met.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of, since it was long distance, there's kind of 2 parts to that. There was learning who you were and then like meeting for the first time in person. So it's like 2 separate things.
Learning I existed.
Right. So the first one, since it was long distance, I had gone through a lot of growing in 2022 and early 2023, and I was not really looking to date, but then God was slowly working on me to date, and then one day I woke up, I was like, I think it's time.
I need to date.
Right. So I think that was coming up on a weekend, and so that Sunday, me and my brother put together a profile. I downloaded a few apps, but the only one that I actually started on, because I wasn't trying to like have 100 different conversations going at once, was Holy. So shout out. And I think it was a week and a half, because that was a Sunday, and I think it was the following, like, next Friday, which was Good Friday.
Yes, it was a Good Friday.
And yeah, you popped up, and we started talking, and that was history.
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much the same thing. It was kind of like a running joke, that I hadn't, like, had a boyfriend, hadn't really looked into anybody or been interested, really. And so, my mom and my cousin had made a joke, more so my cousin, had made a joke that in order, like, for me to get a boyfriend, let alone get married, I was gonna need to go on, like, a mission trip to Israel. And so, because I didn't really go anywhere. Like, I just went to work, to church, and the gym. And so, I'm not looking for somebody in the gym. I feel like that's weird. And there was nobody. But I feel like it's hard enough to find Christians who are actually Christians within your church. So it's like, to look outside of church, I feel like it's just so wild. And there's, like, none, actually. Excuse me. But our church is, like, mainly older people. And so it's like, well, that's not an option. Or they're already married. And then at work, the youngest guy was, like, 40. So that also wasn't an option. So I was like, alright, yeah, you know what? Like, I'm 23. It's fine. Let me just go on at least a Christian dating app. See if I can actually find a Christian. And so as he said, it was like a week and a half between him joining that then I got on the app wholly. And so then I saw your profile.
Yes.
And I waved, and I was like, well, if he waves back, he waves. If he doesn't wave, alright. But not only did you wave, he full on sent the first message.
Boom.
Right. So that was really nice. And then it was, I think from there, as you said, it pretty much was history, because we, obviously, like, the first response wasn't, like, a paragraph, but the more that we kept talking, like, it was just effortless.
Right. Within the next day, it was paragraphs.
Literally, yeah, literally.
Which I had a dream of, like, your first, like, full-on paragraph.
Right.
And that's when I was like, ooh, this is probably something I should be...
I mean, hook on that.
Yeah, I should be following this.
So then fast forward, pretty much almost exactly a month. So we first started talking April 7th, and then, yes, April 7th, and then we went on our first date on May 6th. And so we waited so long because my mom and I had gone to Washington, D.C. at the end of April. End of April. And so we were talking and whatnot on the app, and then during my vacation, I was like, so we were talking about the trip, and then I was mentioning, like, where we were going and whatnot, and the animals, and he was like, oh, you obviously send me pictures, but, no offense to Holy, and most of those apps, you can't send pictures on the app, which I totally get, because you don't want, like, nothing crazy going on, but it's also super inconvenient for the people who are trying just to send, like, I don't know, a picture of something they found on Amazon, or, like, a Bible verse they found or something, and so then it was great, because I was like, oh, I have to send you pictures, blah, blah, blah. But then I was like, wait a minute. That's a perfect leeway, because I wanted to ask you your number, but I didn't want to be like, but also, like, I don't really care, because if you didn't give it to me, then, okay, whatever, but if you did, cool. And so then I asked for his number, and I was like, yeah, well, like, if you give me your number, I can send you these pictures, blah, blah. So then he gave me his number, and then me trying to be, like, super slick, sent mainly, like, pictures of the animals and, like, the architecture and stuff. And then we had also went to go see Abraham Lincoln. And so my mom had taken a silly picture of me. Just being me. And I was like, well, let me just send this in there. And then, like, if he's chill with it, that's, like, a snippet of my energy. And so, if he vibes with it, cool. If he doesn't, and so then I just, like, slid that in there also. And, yeah, here we are. So obviously he vibed with it. But
still have the picture to this day.
Right. So yeah, so we had to wait till I came back from the trip to go on our first date. But he was in Canton. I'm in St. Clairsville. Oh, well, at the time I was in Bridgeport, which is an even smaller city. Y'all probably don't even know where that's at. It's like literally 5 minutes from West Virginia on the border of Ohio and West Virginia. So on the south? Yeah, south.
Ohio?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's southeast.
East, yeah, okay. So the southeast part of Ohio, just so you're not like,
as
oh.
East as you can get, and just about as south as you can get. That's where we is.
Pretty much, like, I don't even know if you can consider, like, Bridgeport part of Ohio. It's like, it's so close to West Virginia, it's crazy. And so anyway, we were like an hour and a half apart. And so in my head, I was thinking like the only cool thing really we have down here that wasn't gonna take forever to drive to is like the movie theater. And so I feel like movie theaters and restaurants, no offense, shouldn't be like your first date because one, the restaurant, your face is stuffed with food half the time, and then a movie you're not supposed to talk. So it's like you don't get to know the person. You just sat there and watched the screen. And so I was like, hey, what's up there? So anyway, we didn't do anything down here. I drove up to Canton. We went to an escape room. That was really fun. Oh, where there also was a lot of construction and one-way streets. And so I hadn't I hadn't driven in Canton, I should say. I've been there when I was younger. And so, or more so Akron. But I didn't get lost, but I definitely was like 20 minutes late. And so the whole time I'm like trying to text him, but also trying to drive so he doesn't think that like I'm bailing on him. And so I was like super nervous, not about meeting you, but I was like, he's not gonna be there, he's gonna think that I'm like blowing him off. But I was like, I'm only like 10 minutes away, just give me some time, please. So it was great, but it worked out, obviously. We did not escape the escape room.
We did not, no.
Epically failed to get out of jail.
Yeah.
And then we went to go eat first.
Because we had like an hour between meeting up and the escape room starting.
Right.
And we still ended up late.
Right. We were just talking so much.
Yeah.
So we went to the escape room after that. And then also, I think all of that was only like 2 hours, but it took like an hour and a half to get there. So he was like, let's maximize your drive.
Right.
But also I just think you didn't want me to leave.
Yeah, I didn't.
And so then we went to a park and then talked for like 8 hours. So that was really awesome. So that was just another confirmation too of like, it was just so easy. Not only to talk to each other over text message, because like, you have time to think over text message, and like reflect and whatnot and get your words together. But in person, it also was super easy just to talk to each other, and get along and whatnot. So that was really awesome and a good start. So that's how we met.
Yeah.
So through Holy, the dating app, and then a month later, we met in person in Canton at an escape room. We got your version, was it Swenson's? Your version of like Sonic.
Yeah.
And then went to a park and talked for hours. Yeesh. Oh, and then what happened when you went home?
And then I told my brother I'm gonna marry her.
Same day.
Same day. I was like, oh, yep. I had my suspicions right off the bat, like over Holy. But then once I met you, I was like, yep. See, you mine.
Aww.
That's the one we'll marry.
Thank you. And you did.
And I did.
So yes, there's your snippet for the first one. But, really quickly again, because we're trying to like make this not 5 hours long.
This is a lot quicker than the last one.
Oh, right. The last one was an hour, but my phone only recorded 20 minutes of it. So you're welcome, you're getting a shortened version now. Maybe that was God's way of being like, shut up, bro!
Y'all are long-winded!
He's like, I fell asleep and I don't sleep! Jinx. Double jinx. Triple jinx. So yes, anyway, shout out to Holy really quick though, because the way that they structured their app was really in-depth and really nice, and it made it easy to kind of like weed out those who you were like, you're just on here because you didn't find anybody on Tinder, so if you slapped Christian on it, you thought you might find somebody there.
Right.
And so it was really nice because they asked like, what does Jesus mean to you? What's your favorite verse? And like, why? What does the verse mean to you? What's your ideal Sunday? And then just questions about yourself, really. But it broke down, where it actually, like, specifically what religion you were, and it had categories. Then, what was it? It asked if, like, you drank, and it gave the option of, like, never, sometimes, always, or not always, socially. And then same with smoking. I think
if
it
you're
had...
a parent or not.
Okay, if you're a parent. it was really broken down. It was nice. And so shout out to them. It definitely made it easy. And then I think in the other video we had talked about how we both just really appreciated our responses, and that was kind of like the first reason that we waved. But then also you were just a total stud.
Oh, of course.
Still are, not like were, but so yes, it was really great. All right, number 2.
Number 2, which is how we knew we wanted to date.
Yes.
You want me to start?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I guess like.
Good answer. So for me, just kidding.
We kind of weaved it in more in the last one, but I guess we can go back. But I feel like whether it was engagement to marriage or dating to engagement or like talking to dating, we kind of already knew and had like the mindset that we were moving into that next stage. So like for me going in, I was like, yeah, I probably want to marry her. So like I could see your character, and from there it was just making sure that we meshed well together. Because like there's a lot of good people out there, but you might not mesh
Right.
correctly, or you might not be able to have that like friendship.
Right. Right.
So like going back and forth through Holy in that first month of talking, like I could tell you were a person of character and integrity and godliness.
Thank you.
So then it was just, okay, well, are we actually going to mesh together? And so for me, that's kind of what I was looking for, because I don't always mesh well, but we meshed well. And
I think I should get $1 for every time you say mesh.
mesh, really? So there's that, and then like starting off within, I can't remember where we were still on Holy, but I think we had transitioned to texting, but it was definitely before we actually met in person.
Mm-hmm.
But you had sent, well, I asked you like one thing that I didn't know about you. I was like, I don't know, I have a secret cat collection. But then she beat me to it because I wanted to say it in person, but she sent it over text, where it was like, she gave me the whole spiel, like, I'm looking for commitment, I'm looking for marriage, I don't want to live together before we're married or have sex before we're married. I was like, not what I was expecting for that question, but full-heartedly agree. So like from day one, pretty much, and you said that was in your bio too, which I forgot about, that you wanted to, about marriage and commitment, stuff like that. It's like we had that on the foresight of like, if this goes well, then we're going to get married. It's not like, well, if this goes well, we'll see where it goes. Because there's people that do that too, where they work really well together, but there's no like
end
goal. Yeah, it's like, okay, well, we're just doing this socially. It's like, well, what's the point? So that was kind of like right off the bat, and so I had that in my foresight of like trying to move things forward. And so after those first few dates, I knew that you were the person I wanted to date officially.
Locked down.
Your girlfriend. Wait, as you as my girlfriend, I as your boyfriend.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. No. Well, I feel like it's pretty much the same thing. To where, how did I know is that, again, as I said, like it's kind of just like a running joke sometimes where if Alex does something, I'm like, well, just know, like, you're the only person I've talked to and tolerated, so you made it. Mm-hmm. So no, it's just, I never really, as I said, I wasn't looking for anything. I didn't feel the need to, like, be in a relationship. And just so many, like, people had tried, but it was not what I was looking for in a sense, as he said, where it was like, from my perspective, when I think of dating, I'm like, well, I'm dating you with the end purpose of us working together and being able to live together long term, married. And so it's just like I never found that. And so then at the time, before I got the app, I still wasn't really looking. I've always just been someone focused on like, okay, well, let me do my school or let me work, and in different things. But when I got the app and then we started talking, I was like, wow, this is really effortless. And you could just tell also that like from, you don't want to go, I want to say going as far as like, you want to look for yourself in someone else, but I feel like you want to look for someone that complements you extremely well, but also has some similarities with you. And so I feel like you did that very well, especially because I don't know, I just feel like people don't have that drive for knowledge or for wisdom, and it's always just like, meh, I know, like, simple math, I'm fine, I don't ever need to learn anything else again, I'm surviving. But it's like, you have that drive as a person to be better and learn things in every way that you can. And that was one of, like, the first things that I was like, yep, yeah. But then through our conversations and whatnot of having the similar mindsets, not so much even as, like, a couple, but just individually as where we wanted to see ourselves, and who we were as a person individually. I thought that was really neat that it was so closely aligned, and that we had similar mindsets. So then I think it made it super easy to like mesh them together because we were already on the same track. But no. So sorry, I'm like so all over the place.
Same.
The wisdom, the knowledge, the drive for it, constantly wanting to like better himself, but also better me, keep me in line. The talking, I feel like is really just, that was it, because like I can't tolerate and act like I like somebody, and I don't do small talk. And so considering like the next day, as we said, it was paragraphs, it was like, wow, we just really connected. But then as even in the early stages of us talking, before we actually started dating at the end of May, like as we were hanging out, obviously like the first one or two, you still kind of have those butterflies of like, does she like me the way that I like her? Or does he like me the way that I like him? Kind of thing. But over that, I feel like we still complimented each other like that early on. So in the areas that like I'm lacking, he's really great at, and then vice versa. And so I think that was really nice, and that's really important also going into marriage, because it's like and that's why I say I don't think it's smart to date or to marry someone who's exactly like you, like looking for yourself, because if you're both lacking in the same areas, who's gonna figure it out? And so our qualities and whatnot, I think really go well together, just because in the areas that I need help, you can help, and then vice versa, but also like emotionally, spiritually especially, and that was one of the biggest areas where I wanted somebody to push me, just because I always was like, I can read my Bible all day, I can be in church all day, I can listen to Christian music all day, but some people think that's too much, and it's like, well, you don't gotta do all that, and blah, blah, and they don't want to match that energy. But then he came along, and he's over here just, like, quoting scriptures that, like, nobody knows, because it's the most, like, uncommon book of the Bible. Or we'll be in, like, Sunday school, and I'm like, yeah, like, that's that one time that so-and-so did this, and blah, blah, and everyone's just like, yeah, like, even the ministers are like, yeah, sure, that happened in the Bible. But it's just, like, the wisdom that you have in the word itself is very attractive. And it drives me to better myself and my walk. Because I feel like, especially the Old Testament, like, if you give me a person that can be like, oh yeah, they did this, and this, and apply it, like, to modern day life and things like that. So I don't know, I feel like, I don't remember how I can, not like compared it, but how I said it a while ago, though, is like you really had like the Bible down pat, and you had the wisdom of speaking the word into your life. But then I had the
application. I think
oh
that's what you said.
yeah.
Of like being able to read it and like how do I apply this practically?
Yeah, so I had the practical standpoint, and you had the textual standpoint.
Mm.
Which I think is really cool, just because. Which is weird though, because I can memorize songs from like hearing them once, but I have to work so hard to memorize verses, especially Old Testament. But except for Psalms, that's not that bad. But I have to work so hard to memorize verses. And so I feel like in my head I can be like, yeah, this reminds me of like the generalized aspect of what Psalm says, or what like the Israelites were about, but I couldn't be like, yeah, in Psalm 51, what is it, 7 through 10, about a broken and contrite heart. Like, I can tell you the premise, but I can't tell you the exact verse. I'm working on it, Lord. I'm working on it. So anyway, so yeah, that was a very not short answer as to how I knew. But I'm a huge spiritual person, and so he marked that off for me. Check. Yeah, check. But also because you pushed me to be a better person as you strive to be a better person yourself. Oh, and then with taking care of yourself, that's huge for me too. Like, if someone doesn't take care of themselves, then I'm like, okay, well then you don't really care about yourselves, and therefore you can't really care about me. Or just to maintain like character and upbringing and whatnot, and who you are, is important to me also. Excuse me. So yeah, spirituality, fitness, just health in general, like internal, external, mental, whatever. And so you do a very good job of that. Yes, especially mentally. And so I appreciate the efforts you put in to make sure that you're okay, so that way you can be here with me. Yes. Yes.
Oh, so we started dating on May 29th.
Yes.
I guess that's probably important to say.
Right.
Because, like, a
month and 22 days after we first met.
Yes. We were talking, and then we were going on dates, but then to, like, make it official, that was May 29th, where we were like, okay, we're dating.
Right. Of last year.
Yeah,
2023.
And so we had been on 3 dates at that point.
Mm-hmm.
The number of, is that completion? Yeah. So the first one, she came down to me in Canton, and then 2 and 3, I came up to her. Which just made more sense because of the way her schedule was anyway. But the second one, what was that? I picked you up at church, after church, from Harbor of Hope.
Yeah, you picked me up after church.
Yeah, and then we went to Longhorn, a restaurant, and then we went to Fast and Furious 23, a movie. So we did both of the things you shouldn't do on a first date. So we moved all that to the second date. And then after that one, we went to Bed Bath & Beyond. Remember that?
Yes.
Yes.
I do.
Probably where I fell in love for the first time.
Oh, it was like, I'm Bath & Body Works, I am a kid in a candy store.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the third date, again, he came down, and we met behind the Michaels at the mall down here, just to park our cars, because it was like, why do we need to have 2 cars? Where did we go directly after that? Oh, yeah, okay, so
first.
What?
I think drinks first.
Yeah, so I had always seen those things on like Pinterest, Instagram, where you put like 2 options in a container, and then they have to pick out of 2 options based off of like what step you're at. So I had done that where I was like, okay, we're going to Starbucks, but within Starbucks, it was either like get a cold drink or get a hot drink kind of thing. And so the first thing led us to Starbucks, and then at one point we ended up going to Books A Million. We had to go to a bookstore. We went, it was either like go eat or go get food to have a picnic.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had to go get food.
Yeah.
And make sandwiches, and then we went to a park and ate it. So that was really cool. And we were there for a while. We went to Ogilvy Park, and we stayed until like they were closing the gates again with parks and us talking for hours. And we played volleyball.
Board games.
Yeah, we played board games. He saw the competitive side of me for the first time. Didn't scare him away though.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really nice. And I think one of the things that really works for us too is that yes, you have to be like intimate and you have to do those things that are more so like in the dating and marriage realm. But it's like first and foremost, you have to be friends. And so I think what really helps with us is that we have that balance of like still doing friendship things. To where it's like we're not having a full candlelit dinner and whatnot, but which is more of like a romantic thing. But we'll like build Legos or a puzzle and do things that we both like that are kind of just super laid back. And then it really just opens that door for like really nice conversations. But it's nice. It's just, we call them like friendship dates because they're just kind of like down to earth and relaxing. But I think doing those really helps. All right, number 3. Well, I feel like this kind of ties into number 2. But number 3 was one from Alex's side of like how he knew he was ready to marry me, and then from my side of how I knew I was ready to marry him. Which, funny story, I said yes before he could even ask, like, could say a word. Like, I walk in, he's not even like knelt down yet, it's just the family's there. I see the blues and everything, he's in a suit. Woo! And it was like, oh, yes! And they're like, he didn't say anything!
With a mask!
But I guess, for my thing, it's the same thing, to where it was like, I already knew that we were getting along so well, our intent was already, like, the reason of saying yes to dating and continuing dating was eventually we're gonna get married. Like, we worked so well together. This person is for me. But they're, like, God just lined things up so well within our relationship to where it was, like, there were so many signs and things about a relationship that you literally had to be like, it was just God, and God is why we're together. And God put them together. Just the way that doors open and things like that and things lined up.
Yeah.
But specifically marriage-wise, we both had already talked a while ago about how it's kind of like, okay, well, just in general, like, if you know that this is who you want to marry, when is really not necessarily up to you, but when God says, but also up to you of like, if you know you're gonna marry this person, things are going extremely well, God's laid it on your heart, like, yeah, this is who you're supposed to marry, why wait 4 years instead of just getting married? But obviously you gotta be like, sure. Not just like, yeah, I think we should get married, it sounds cool. But the ready for me more so was just like complete trust in you. And your walk. Just because, as he'll explain, God revealed to him it was fine and he could do it. And so when I had learned that, it was more so just my trust and my faith in the fact that you're so obedient and where you need to be in your walk, that if God is telling you it's time for us to get married, then let's get married. Because I was already like, well, I'll get married whenever. Like, for me, I've never really thought it had to be like, when you're 25, or don't wait till you're 26. Like, I've never thought of it that way. I just feel like when you know, and when God says it's time, then do it. Mm-hmm. So that was my short and simple thing, but mainly it was just my trust in you and you saying that God said it was fine.
Short and simple. There you go. Well, I guess for me, I kind of had to go through a season of like separating it, because literally, like I said, from day one, I was like, I'll marry her.
Ring the first date.
Ring, bam. Have Brooklyn come in with an engagement ring on the first date. Oh, you're out walking your dog. It's my mom. She comes. Anyway. So yeah, I guess same thing. Like, we wanted everything flowed together so well that was like it couldn't be anything other than God. Like, usually if it's you have to force it, or at the very least there's a lot of obstacles. And not saying that we didn't have obstacles, but God works it out for you. He opens the doors that are supposed to open and closes the doors that need to close, as long as you ask him and you're willing for doors to close. Because sometimes he'll open doors for you and then you never walk through it.
You're like, I need a different sign though.
Right. Or you'll ask him to close the door and he closes it, and then you go and get like a pry bar and try to pry the door off the hinges. And be like, if it's not your will, lock the door, and you're like prying it open. So like, I didn't want that to be us. So like, I knew that I wanted to, I knew that we wanted to, that everything was working well, that God was in it so far. But I think for me, like, I was learning a lot of practical wisdom and stuff at the time. So it's like, I just want to make sure that this isn't just supposed to be one of those situations where we're together to better each other, and then God be like, okay, I got your actual spouse like over here somewhere.
Right.
So that was my biggest thing, I think, going through that time, at least that I can remember during like those last couple months. But then we were really talking about marriage, and so at that point I had moved up here in December, or down here I should say.
Right.
But I still had a house in Canton. So I owned a house, and I was renting in St. Clairsville. And so I had gone down there, or back up there, to get the house ready to sell. Right?
That was rough. So rough.
That was really rough, because it was supposed to be like 2 or 3 weeks.
Right.
And it was only a week and a half. It was the longest week and a half ever.
And I think that was one of the things too of like showing like how close we had gotten, because I've never been like a romantic or emotional person, but the Lord thankfully has worked on me for this man. And so I never really thought that was like a real thing necessarily of like, oh, when you're married and like you have to sleep apart for a night because they went somewhere, or like not being together. But it's like, it's so freaking hard, man. So hard.
Especially when you live 3 doors apart. And it's like, good morning!
Right. 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 And so we had spent like a lot of time together, as far as just still like really trying to get to know each other and just wanting to spend time together. Obviously within reason of like still doing what we needed to do and then not living together. But for that separation of like what felt like going back to long distance was a lot, which I'm like, how did we ever do that? But yeah, I commend people who do long distance for a long time, because it definitely would have been harder. But go ahead, sorry.
But anyway, so I went down there and I told her, I was like, because we had been talking about marriage seriously, like, because we were coming up kind of on the 1 year at that point. Because I think we started talking like January, February-ish, and April would have been 1 year of knowing each other.
Right.
But we were trying to go off of like the dating knowing each other, which was almost 2 months later.
Right.
But we still got engaged at 1 year of knowing each other.
Yes.
Almost.
A little later. Yeah.
But anyway, so we've been talking more seriously about it, and at that point I moved down here, so I'm like, what's the difference? Why can't we just get married? You know what I mean? Because we're already down here, we're already close, we know we want to get married, like, let's just get married. So I was in that boat. But before that, I told her that when I went up to Canton, my focus would be to make sure that this is what God wanted for us. And if so, like, figure out the date to do that. Because, like, I was trying to work out all the strategies and the logistics of everything, and then God kind of, like, shut that down in me. But anyway, so that was my hardest thing, was, like, it is going so swimmingly. And we did want to marry each other, but was that what God wanted? And so that was kind of just my prayer. So I was praying a lot, fasting a lot during that time. And then try not to word it weird, but basically, my prayer was that God would show me that wasn't just what we wanted, like it was what He wanted. And so He, for a few days, it was almost like God took that desire to marry out of me. I was like, well, that's weird. And then He was like, now shut up! I'm telling you, marry her! And then put the desire back in me. I was like, okay, I guess it was Him. So it was a really weird period, because I went from like seriously wanting to marry you to it being like, cool. And then God being like, it's not just you, it's obviously
ordained.
Right. It's ordained. So, I came back from that knowing that we were going to get married. Like, knowing for sure, because God had officially confirmed it. And, like, I was trying to be, like, slick and keep it, like, secret. Like, she wasn't even going to know. Because we had talked even before that. You were like, I'll marry you whenever. Like, I'll marry you.
Right.
And if you ask me, I'll say yes. And then
Right.
we get married. So, like, I knew. Like, Sharon told me. So, I was like, I'm going to be super slick. I got confirmation. So, I'm going to go behind her back and get everything ready. I was going to talk to your mom. I was going to get the ring, talk to my parents. And then one day just pop up with the ring and be like, marry me. But then, let's see, it wasn't very long after I got back from Canton, and we went on a late night Denny's date, and I was like, when do you want to get married? I was like, we're selling the house, we're getting that freed up, yeah, let's get married in a few months.
I think that I think there's that stereotypical kind of like fairy tale where the woman wants to know like nothing about it and be super surprised, but I appreciate that you did the opposite and that we talked about it, because it's like, well, one, I feel like
we talk about everything.
Right. But from the flip side of like, for those couples who like aren't on the same page and aren't as congruent and fluent like as we were, I feel like, how do you know that they're ready? So it's like, what if you're like, yeah, she says like, I want to get married to you, but then you go to do it and she's like, well, I didn't mean now, and like says no. And so I think like I wasn't hinting because it's like, or any pressure of like, I'll marry you whenever, like do it tomorrow, because as I said, it's really your decision, or like God's decision of when He grants us to do so. And so I was ready whenever, just because we were already dating for so long. I already, as we said, knew that within us dating and saying yes to the dating, it was like, well, I'm in it for the marriage aspect. And so things were going so well, God just kept lining things up. And then, especially too, like with my family is so protective. But at the same time, a lot of them just immediately like honored the fact that Alex was my boyfriend, because they know that like I don't tolerate crap. Like my standards are very high. I know what I want exactly how I want it. And so they were like, for you to even allow this man to be dating you, he must be alright. But still, them being like family, being protective and whatnot. But they all love you. There's not like a single family member that's like, like it's all just, no, he's great. Like across the board. But even the men also, which I feel like the men are the ones who are always like, I'll see about him. Like, give me an hour with him. But like off the bat, they could just tell he's a genuine person. And just your eyes. Like I told him since the beginning, like his eyes are so overpowering, because like the love that you have just beams through your eyes and in everything you do. So I've always just been a very lucky woman from the beginning. So I was like, dude, if this man feels this way towards me, but also like marks all the boxes that I had from the beginning, I'm an idiot if I let him go. Like, who am I? So no, just meeting all of those qualifications, complimenting me so well, being a man of God, being so wise, yes, being, I'm gonna start crying. Just being so amazing. That's literally all I can say, just in everything that you do. But I'm literally the most blessed, luckiest woman alive since I'm married to you, even when I was dating you. But yes, so that's number 3.
Yeah.
Yes.
Was there another point?
Oh, okay, yeah, we'll probably have to wrap this up super quick, because I feel like we're probably already past half an hour. But the last thing we were talking about was, again, I feel like, I think I said this in the last video, to where I almost feel like it's weird for us to say something, because it wasn't a struggle for us. But it's important, and it's like, we're an example that it can be done, of saying, like, it's possible to not have premarital sex and not live together before you get married. And I give props to us in our walks with God, because as he said, we literally lived 3 doors down from each other. And so, like, we're in the house right now, and then his apartment was 3 doors down. So it's like, we had ample opportunity just to spend endless time together. Which, as we got closer to the wedding, obviously we did spend more time together, because we're like, we're going into unification, we gotta spend some time together. But, like, I know it's not necessarily stated as, like, a commandment in the Bible that says, do not live together. But in various points, it talks about not tempting yourself to sin, or tempting yourself to be put in the position to have sex before marriage, or just any sin. So, like, if you were an alcoholic and you finally stopped drinking, why would you tempt yourself by going back to a bar with the people who helped you be an alcoholic, basically? Maybe like one time, but I feel like consecutively, it's like you're waiting for the door to open for you to start drinking again. So same with living together, where I feel like that is the ultimate temptation of, you're with each other all the time, and obviously you're going to be attracted to one another sexually because you love each other, and that is a huge part of marriage. And so I feel like it's just, I just feel like it's the ultimate temptation. So it's like, don't do it. You're just setting yourself up. But do you have any wise words of wisdom?
No, similar thing, yeah. I mean, it's not in there, but I feel like that's kind of a standard of most churches, even today, as liberal as some churches are. That tends to still be a standard, and even so, from the fact of, like, abstain from the appearance of evil, of what you might not be, but why would you want to look like you possibly were?
Right.
Which we had issues with too, of like being out late a lot.
Right.
And that was just par for the course for us, of like being long distance. Like when we were together, we had to make
most of our time.
Most of it. So like there was times I didn't leave here till like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. I wasn't getting home till 4:30 on a Sunday or a Monday or something like that. So, you know, you do the best you can, but it was like, if you're living with somebody, especially if you've done like a long-term relationship and then you're living together, it's like, well, what are people supposed to think?
Right.
Or if you are in that same position and try not to have sex before marriage, then it's like, well, why would you put yourself in that position?
Right.
So it's just trying to not give the devil a foothold in your life, I think. And that was kind of the point for me, and mentality for me, yeah.
Right. Which, shocker, same. But again, I just think it was super easy for us, because from the get-go, like, those were the 2 things that we held really as, like, sacred ground. So it was like, for us, that was our ultimate standard of, like, that is the boundary, don't cross the boundary. We both just did not want, we wanted to save sex for marriage, and that was really strict standard that we had with each other before we even knew each other, but which was really nice. I feel like that's so hard to find anymore, where I think it's easier. It was easy for us, I think, because we know through like reading the Bible what sex is supposed to mean. But I feel like a lot of people within the world and those who, even people who do read the Bible, maybe they don't fully grasp the actual like concept. But like if you don't really understand what sex is supposed to be and what God intended it to be and how He expected it to be incorporated into marriage, then it's like it's not going to hold that same significance or importance to you. And so it'll just be like, well, we had it. It was a mistake, kind of thing. Or just people go around doing it all the time. But I feel like if we had broken that, or if we didn't hold that as seriously, it would have, altered things negatively within the relationship, especially prior to marriage and whatnot, especially if it was super early on. Like I feel like some people literally meet the person and then go do it, and it's like, did you even have a conversation first? Did you know their last name? And so I'm glad, and I feel like if we had done anything like that early, or crossed those lines that early, of like, oh well, let's just live together, or let's have premarital sex, and it's like, you're gonna hit a lot of stumbling blocks because without any of the outside obstacles, you already hit 2 huge ones. And so, because you didn't do things correctly, it's gonna go a lot rougher than it needs to. Now I'm not saying that I don't think God would have flat out been like, separate! And been like, I undo my ordaining. But I think He would have had, like, the grace to work with us, because He is forgiving and has that mercy and whatnot, and loves us, but I definitely think we would have had more hardships than needed, and that God intended for us. And so, I just think borderline is that people make their life harder than it needs to be. Like, I'm not even gonna say people as in, like, a disassociation that, like, but we don't. But in general, I feel like we as humans make our life harder than it needs to be, because we see something and it's like, oh well, I want that, or I want to partake in that, or that looks fun, or that looks like that'd be whatever. And so in the moment we want that satisfaction, and we're very much, I want it here, I want it now, this is what I feel like doing without thinking. And so then 2 months later, it's like, oh, wow, all my money's gone. I've gone to, like, strip clubs every weekend. And my marriage is falling apart. And so, it's like, we put ourselves in positions, as we were talking about, to sin. Or we look at things and don't think about the consequence, and it just sounds good in the moment. And then we end up unhappy, and things like that. And it's like, it's just not necessary. There's so many things that God is trying to tell us and trying to show us if we would just open our hearts and open our minds to Him, and listen, I would say, and actually seek Him. But it's like, we don't want to put in the effort, we just want what's right in front of us. And so, I feel like I'm having an altar call. So if you've never accepted the the Lord as your Savior, anyway, but yes, I just feel like life is so much easier with Christ. And it's almost comical. Like, I feel like that's bad to say, but it's almost kind of funny sometimes watching people who are, like, so hardcore against, like, our beliefs or the way that we do things. And I'm like, but how does your life look right now? Like, if you took our whole life separately, like, if you took your whole life, my whole life, and laid it, like, together, I felt confident enough to say together, and put our hardships together, and then slapped it next to, like, a non-believer, or even if they are a believer but don't follow the word as they should, or don't worship God as they should, and put our life next to theirs, it would be like, and you're defending what you're following? Like, are you serious? But Anyway, so yeah, I think it's interesting that people of the world are like, yeah, bro, that's my life, and I'm like, but you've accomplished nothing. But anyway, and all the hardships and all the troubles and all the unnecessary things that if you just follow the Lord. But anyway, I'm a talker. So yes, there's our video. Again, as I said towards the beginning, if you have any questions, please feel free to message me, whether it be through Instagram or texting me, because again, most of you personally know me, or just comment on YouTube if you think that someone else can benefit from it as well. But yes, we thank you so much for being part of our family. Next week, I really want, obviously, like, the wedding video to be very soon, but I want to take a video or make a video about how I read my Bible, because I've had a few questions about that. Or some people really just don't know how to read their Bible. Or they're reading it but don't understand it, and then it's like, but are you really reading it though? What'd you get from it? And so I want to help people be able to get the most out of the Bible that they can, because the Lord has so many good things to say. So that'll probably be the next video. But in the meantime, please continue to be peculiar people. Stand up for what you believe, biblically. And continue spreading the good word of the Lord. So, yes.
Amen.
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 Amen. Okay, Tanisha.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. All right. Love y'all. Bye.